Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you. Okay. I have learned that in times of separation and loss and sorrow, the Psalms can bring much comfort and solace. And in this spirit, I now recite from the 23rd Psalm, this great psalm of faith. And Richard was a very proud Jew, and he loved being Jewish. And these words remind us that even when we feel alone or lonely, we are never truly alone, for God is with us, and we know that God is with your Richie. You can join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'd like to continue with this poem, which we read at our synagogue from time to time, but I would like to personalize it for Richard. At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we will remember Richard. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember Rich. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. At the rustling of the leaves and at the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember Richard. As long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have joy we crave to share, when we have decisions that are difficult to make, when we have achievements that are based on his, we will remember Rich. As long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. We will remember Richard. Richie, Rich, Dad, Pop-Up. He was memorable. He was unique. He was one of a kind, and one special man that made everyone else feel special. Truly, to know Richard was and is to love him, and he loved everyone. He was kind, he was caring, he was giving and loving, and he was funny and fun. That is why Our loss is very sad and difficult and profound because Rich was such a constant, larger than life, always there for you. In his own vivacious way, Richard was ready to help, to offer assistance, to listen, to show care and concern. Indeed, the greatest joy in life is to be able to say, I still have something to do. I want to accomplish even more. And so he did. As you know, early on, Rich learned the meaning of hard work and diligence. He was in sales. Actually, it was his calling. And he was so well suited for it. He regarded as everyone as an important person, and people just gravitated to him. Richie was so successful that he began his own sales company. He called the venture United Sabra. Is that the way you pronounced it? Well, that's the Israeli version. Saber, with each letter representing one of your names, right? And United Saber dealt with products from chemicals to lighting, small electrical products, food refrigeration. It had it all, or it would find it all. He was highly respected in his industry, and his clients just connected with him. And to quote something I heard Adam say a little while ago, he was the man. That is why I believe that Rich might say to all of us right now, first of all, he would say, thank you so much for being here to tell my good story, as we're going to hear, and to support my loving family. And then I think he might go on to say, don't mourn for me, because in the balance, he did not lead a mournful life. He led a full, fulfilling, vital, active, purposeful, and good life. He loved life and living, and he had so much to live for. However, one cannot speak of Richie alone without also speaking of you, Eleanor. You're called Elle also, right? His devoted and loving wife of 61 years. So your love story goes something like this. You can correct me if I didn't get this right, but you first met at Richie's house for a party he was having. Although you arrived with a friend, I take that as a guy friend, right? Yeah. Nevertheless, it was love at first sight. You were 16 years old. Richie was 4.5 years older. He was so very handsome. And you were and still are so very beautiful. And he was charming and the life of the party, and you were just smitten. It just took Richie a little while to catch up with you. And over your many years of marriage, you evolved into a real team, a true partnership, best friends, soulmates. You enjoyed a very active social life of discos, clubs, so many friends, and so much fun. Elle, I can't even begin to imagine how much you will miss your life's partner. And how your dad loved you as family, Adam and Bonnie, and Stacy and Ira, and Beth. And to quote you once again, our dad worked so very hard, but he always found time for us. He put family first, and he would do anything and everything for you. And I would add you for him. Pop-Up simply adored his grandchildren, Jenna, Sasha, Avi, Ben, Jesse, Jake, and Justin. I know that your Pop-Up was so very proud of all of you. He was proud of your accomplishments, and prouder yet of the bright, sensitive, and caring family that you are. Richard is also survived by and will be profoundly missed by his sister Lois and brother Harvey and all of your families and this extended family. I know he felt your constant support, care, concern, and love. Richard had many other interests and passions, mostly revolving around sports. He loved sports, attending games, attending events, and he was a dedicated Pittsburgh sports fan. He was warming up to Philly a little bit. All of us here today will carry with us so many warm, rich, and good memories of this charismatic man who was filled with life and love. And all of our precious memories and all of our sacred stories can never, ever be taken away. Torah is always relevant. It certainly is today. We just finished the end of the book of, I'm not going to give you a quiz on Torah, Adam. Okay. Yeah. But we just finished the book of Genesis, and we're about to begin the book of Exodus, and the last chapter of Genesis is called Vayechi, which means, and he lived. It talks about Jacob, actually. It says Jacob lived, but then the question is asked, it's all about Jacob dying. So why is the portion called, and he lived? Because if you can gather your children and grandchildren, your friends, your family, and feel that you really had an impact on others and inspired others and touched the lives of others, then you live on. So I think this is very appropriate for Richard. Also, ironically, when Jacob blesses his 12 sons and one daughter, the first son to be blessed is Reuben. He's the oldest. And Richard's Hebrew name is Reuven. Our Reuven loved and was loved in turn, and we know that this love has not ended now with his passing. For as long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. And to keep those memories going, I'm going to begin by calling on family members. And it's the greatest tribute when family speaks about their loved one. So I'm going to start with Lois.
Rabbi, you know what you did?
Yeah.
You stole my poem.
What did I steal?
I was going to say that poem.
Oh, well, you can skip
No.
that part.
I'll skip it. So
think alike.
this is a lot harder than I expected it to be, because I think everybody who knew Rich had a special relationship with this man. Everyone did. And he was always, for everyone and for me, the best source of love, affection, and comfort. He was always there to listen to me. I mean, going through my life and going through the ups and downs of my life, I always called him. And he would listen, and at the end of every conversation, he would say, "Things are going to be great. You're going to do fabulous." And, I didn't even realize how hard it would be not to call him or to have him here. And I appreciate all you people being here and my family. And there will be a big hole in my heart. I will miss him deeply because he is the one that I always went to for advice, for comfort, and especially in the last few years. And even though it's really interesting over the last couple of years, even when we talked on the phone, and the last couple of years it would be a little difficult to understand what he was saying, but there was always this feeling of, at the end, "I love you." And it was always that way in all of our conversations. No matter what, I'd always fill in the blanks at the end. But the part that was the most beautiful was, "I love you." And, I do find that there's very few people in life that you have these deep connections with. And he will be missed by me and by everyone else. And I think we all agree that we loved him. And he was a special person in our life. And we were lucky to know him and to be a part of his life. So I want to say goodbye to my sweet brother. And thank you all for being here, because it is a comfort to have you.
Thank you. And I'm going to call on his brother Harvey.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Under these unpleasant circumstances, I'd like every one of us present to come to mourn my passing of my incredible, lucky brother, extraordinary brother who meant so much to me. It is now my opportunity to fondly reflect, pay tribute, and honor his memory. I have always looked up to my big brother as kind, someone to emulate and admire. From early on, Rich, as I like to call him, had the unique qualities and values that he inherited, passed on by our father, to become very successful in whatever endeavors he pursued. Through hard work and sacrifice, Rich dedicated and devoted his life to provide for Eleanor, Beth, Stacy, Adam, and his grandchildren everything their hearts desired. Rich's legacy will endure for generations to come. I know his loved ones are so grateful to Rich for inspiring them and serving as a role model. In closing, on a personal note, I will always remember Rich as the handsome, gregarious, ambitious, fun-loving brother who will be in my thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
I'd like to call on first cousin Bob Gordon.
After the eloquence of the rabbi and Harvey and Lois, I really have very little to say that's any different. But what I offer is my personal observations of Richie, which I did observe. I observed Richie during his entire life, and I came to some conclusions long before this last illness of his. As a child, I first got to know my cousin Rich and my Aunt Pearl, Uncle Abe, Harvey, and Lois when they lived in Aliquippa. Aliquippa, for those who don't know, is in Pennsylvania, not far from Pittsburgh. The Rothensteins would occasionally visit us in Pittsburgh, and the Gordons, my father, Uncle Meyer, Aunt Edna, Patty, and I, would visit the Rothensteins in Aliquippa. Richie and I were the same age. We played together and got along well. But as a child, I never really had any thoughts or deep insights into him because we were children. When he and I were 14, the Rothensteins moved to Pittsburgh across the street from our house. Then Rich and I became very close. We went to Taylor Alderdice High School together, played sports together, at which he was much more accomplished than I was, dated together, at which he was still much more accomplished than I was, and always looked for ways to do a little mischief together. For example, he and I, at the ripe age of 14 or 15, loved to occasionally sneak out and take in a burlesque show at Minsky's Burlesque Theater on Market Street. But what struck me about Rich, even at age 14, was how easy it was to acclimatize himself to the sudden cultural change from Hicktown, Aliquippa, to big city Pittsburgh. Rich immediately became one of the most popular and sought-after kids in high school. Yes, he was athletic. Yes, he was handsome. But he had another quality about which I first recognized at that time. It was his people skills. He was empathetic, honest, and straightforward. And most important, when you were with Rich, he always showed you how happy he was to be with you. He was warm, welcoming, and genuinely interested in you. And he made you feel special. Whenever he saw me, he would always give me a, "Hey, Bob!" And you know that there was nothing phony about it. He was a genuine article. He maintained this quality for the rest of his life. Even in the past few years, as his speech became more and more difficult, whenever I would call him on the phone, I would always get my, "Hey, Bob!" Even when he could say little else. Everyone who knew Rich or just met him knew that he was special. He was well-liked and well-loved. Rich was smart enough to fall in love with Eleanor, who also knew how to love. And in the last few years and at the end, it was her intense, fiercely protective love and the love of Beth, Stacy, Adam, Harvey, Lois, and his grandchildren that nurtured and sustained him. At the end of his life, Rich got what he had given all of his life.
I'm going to call on Justin.
All right, wrote a little something here. First and foremost, this week has been one of reflection. It's figuring out what I wanted to say up here. The one word that kept coming up to me was the effect that he had on other people and everybody around him. And a lot of you know, and a lot of you don't know, from about age of 8 to like my last year of high school, I always would, winter breaks, summer breaks, anytime I could get, I would hop in the car with him and just go to work with him for the day. And that's really where I got to really see the man he was outside of the family. You know, he did business with a lot of people from all different types of backgrounds, and they all could agree. They all left with a smile on their face, because that's just the type of individual he was. And that's the type of individual I'm going to emulate. It's going to be tough watching. It's going to be tough watching Pirate games, Penguin games, Steeler games for a while. But we're I think I'll always remember the most. I didn't want to do this. I'm sorry. Just what he would say when he would answer the phone. He was always a phone call away. We talk when I got to college. We'd talk about every 2 weeks or twice a week, and it always started with a "Hey, big guy," and that's what I remember. And I like to think everything happens for a reason, because a couple weeks ago I had gotten a new phone, and I was, getting used to it and all that. And I found voicemails from before he got ill, and gonna cherish those forever. And Pop, I just hope I continue to make you proud, and as I continue to become a man. And thank you for all you did for me and Mom.
I'm going to call on Beth. Beth?
I started writing stuff about my dad, and then I ran out of time, so I'm winging this. My dad went by Rich, Richard, Rich Murray, Dick, depending on who it was, and he answered to all of it. He was probably the last of the cold call salesmen. He really resisted technology. We tried, but he just didn't want to do that. He embraced everybody. Any friend I brought home, welcome, barbecue. Best times we've had were in the backyard. He loved my mom so much, did anything for her. And he also did everything for us, too. He really tried. I don't think we were unrealistic. But if he could afford it, he would help us. But some of the best things that he did was every Thursday night, he would bring pizza and sandwiches, fries for me, Justin, and Jake every Thursday. He was at Justin's game, I think, every game, no matter what it was. He had to have a list of when it was, whether it was wrestling, which Justin hated, baseball, football, Am I missing something? Okay. You did too many things, but he was at every football game. He even went to football games like, an hour away by himself, and I didn't know. Justin would say, Pop-Up was there. I'm like, what? So he really, he loved his sports. Him and Justin really bonded. Jake's not here today, but Jake loves his Pop-Up very much. He just didn't have that camaraderie with the sports and everything that Justin did. But in his own way, he loved his Pop-Up. Pop-Up loved him. And I could sit here for an hour and a half telling you everything that he did, but I think most of you that are here know my dad, know how he was, and he's at peace now. And that is the most important thing. So we don't have to watch him suffer anymore. Love you, Dad.
I'm going to call on Adam, and then we're going to close with Stacy.
It's hard getting up here. I feel like ebb and flows with my emotions. I'm going to read. Maybe I'll wing it a little bit too. Right, Dad? On behalf of the family here, I want to thank everyone for being here to remember our beloved dad, Richard Rothenstein. Your presence truly means the world to us, and I'm sure Dad's watching from above. Richie was the epitome of vitality. He truly was our rock in our family. He had an infectious zest for life that made everyone around him smile. Dad, I'm so grateful for the good life you provided to me, Beth, Stacy, Jenna, Sasha, Bonnie, and of course, Mom. Throughout our lives, Rich was the king of the castle. He was the quintessential super dad, always doting on Mom, Stacy, Beth, and me. He was so proud of us. He loved nothing more than being with his family. He never missed a sports event, a dance recital. He always made time for Mom with Friday nights with Sinatra, headed to Ponzio's. That was like the Friday night ritual. They had to do that before I got to go to my friend's house or some other friend's house. I personally have such fond memories of Dad being the youngest. I was in the house the longest, and when everyone else was gallivanting around, I was still home. Little Adam. Dad was a sports enthusiast. You're hearing that time and time again. You could always see him on the sideline at any of our sports competitions or cheering on my kids. I'm going to just talk about a couple fond memories I had down memory lane with my dad that were real special to me. One of the fond memories down memory lane was playing a tennis tournament. We were in Jamaica with the Goldenbergs on vacation. But the tournament was only for men only. But I was pretty good at the time. I was a little kid with braces at 12 years old. And Dad being, bigger than life, Dad said, you need to get play in this tournament. Instead of sitting on the beach, you can go play. And so Dad was pretty confident I could hold my own and insisted I should play. So no one really gave me a chance against mostly grown adults against a 12-year-old with braces. 4 hours later, I was in the finals. I was still on the court in 90-degree Jamaican weather, And there was my dad, front and center, always present, enjoying his red stripe, corralling friends and family to watch, getting them off the beach. He's like, "You're not going to believe this. Adam's still in this tournament." So he was beaming with pride. Probably my highlight of my tennis career. I had some good years, but that was when I was at the plateau, I guess. Another memorable experience that was so cool as a kid. Goes back in my memory bank, but it was special. My dad surprised me and took me to perhaps the greatest middleweight boxing match I ever saw. Back in the day, we watched on closed circuit TV at the racetrack. It was Hagler versus Sugar Ray Leonard. Wow, it was unbelievable. It was a very night late with a savory, animated crowd. I think I was the youngest person there. The audience was so excited because Sugar Ray Leonard came out of retirement. The audience was divided. You can feel the excitement. It was so cool to witness one of the greatest fights in boxing history. They never fought again. And it was just so incredible, Dad surprising me and having that special time and bond with my father. So just simple, lazy days at the summers, spending time at the pool with close friends, doing our shenanigans. And my dad would always chime in, "Hey, fellas," always present, engaging. He was a true guy's guy. The pool was like a true oasis for my dad and our friends and family. So many countless barbecues, just reminiscing and talking about fun and nonsense, and sometimes serious talks. I wish I could just capture that time in a bottle. It was very special to me as I grew up. Another huge passion was my dad's love for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sorry here for the Eagles fans, but that was infused into our souls as kiddos. My dad would always love to reminisce and constantly remind me that no other NFL team exuded the excellence like the elite 78 Steelers. I remember fondly one time when NFL Films produced the Dream Ball, which was a computer analytics simulation of the greatest teams in football. It was like the Oscars in the house. When the Steelers beat the undefeated 72 Dolphins, my dad was truly on cloud nine. The other hobby he loved was watching with his stellar home theater system, watching classic movies like Predator, Lawrence of Arabia, extremely loud, and then hearing my mother say, "Richie, turn it down." My room upstairs felt like a train station. He loved big cinematic movie experiences. Perhaps my father's greatest passion in a photo finish with the Steelers would be the sounds of smooth Frank Sinatra. My dad idolized him and all his music and wished to be a fly on the wall with the famous Rat Pack. In fact, he has a picture of the Rat Pack in their apartment. To my dad, that was the true essence of cool. Dad, your ever-presence at all my events and zest for life rubbed off on me, as now I always try to be a constant spirit with both my daughters, Jenna and Sasha. I truly cherish these special moments with my children. My dad loved being with all his family and the kids. It was his ethos. All the children always gravitated to Richie. He had the it factor. My dad had some fun, imaginative buddies that the kids loved to hear about. Their famous names were as follows. There's three of them. Bebby Bubalino, Louis Balsanki, and of course, Nizhny Novgorod. It was classic pop-pop at his finest. As my father, I would always admire his strong work ethic and sense of humor. I still remember the funny plaque on display in the house, Mom remembers this, that said, "Selling is like shaving. If you don't do it every day, you're a bum." I'm not sure I was worthy of that slogan, as I usually preferred the Miami Vice scruffy look, so I guess I was out. But being on the street as a consummate salesman was my dad's version of playing golf as a hobby. I mean, he loved being on the street selling. He was all about being the most successful, charismatic sales professional in business. My dad never stopped, as customers would always look forward to seeing my dad's larger-than-life presence. Even at the end with his Alzheimer's disease later in life, my dad always tried his best to rise above it with class. Dad, as Sinatra always said, you've done it your way. To a wonderful father and grandfather, we love you, Dad, and until we meet on the other side, love always, your son. I love you, Dad.
And Stacy is going to join us.
As usual, I'm a planner, so I wrote mine out. But just before I start, it just brought back a memory when we're talking about my dad's love of sports, because that's not something usually someone will associate me with my dad's love of sports. But when we had our trip of a lifetime as a family and going to Florida, when we came home, after being in beautiful 90-degree weather every day, I'll never forget my special moment with my dad when he took me to the Steelers game. And it was, I don't even know the New York team, but we were the only people there rooting for the Steelers, and we were up in like peanut heaven, and I was freezing. And that memory literally just came back to me today. So here's my plan part now. Happy and joyful feelings embrace me when I think of my dad. From bedtime kisses, hugs when I felt scared, a chauffeur taking me wherever I needed to go, my Saturday morning Dunkin' Donut buddy, my talking, walking buddy. Dad was my cheerleader, telling me to keep reaching for the stars, telling me, go, go, go. On Tuesday morning, I found the card that my dad had written me for my graduation from Teachers College, Columbia University. You made it, Stacy. Now more than ever. The best is yet to come. The famous saying, cream always rises to the top. These words I discovered on my graduation card were an example of the kind of person he was and still is in our hearts. On that day, he signed the card, "Love you madly, Mom and Dad." I love you madly too, Dad. Here are my words, Dad, to help me remember you. I wrote a poem called Remembering Dad. We'll always remember that smile, the caring heart, the light you brought when you came into the room. We'll always remember you being there for Mom and us through times, good and bad, no matter what. We'll always remember, Dad. There'll never be another Rich. Rich Murray Rothenstein, silver hair, eyes that care, gentle words when we're in despair. In our hearts you live on, our loving Dad never gone. Forever, you are our bright, shining light. We love you always, Dad. I love you, Dad.
As we begin to close our service, I also would like to offer a poem. And I think it's so appropriate for Richard. And I'd like to read it as if he would be responding to the magnificent tributes that we heard here today. Don't grieve for me, for now I'm free. I'm following the path God laid for me. I took God's hand when I heard God call. I turned my back and I left it all. I could not stay another day to laugh, to love, to work, or play. Tasks left undone must stay that way. I found that place at the close of day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss, ah yes, these things I too will miss. Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full. I savored much. Good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your heart and share with me. God wanted me, now God set me free. Let us all rise. And I close with our traditional prayer, which includes Richard's Hebrew name, which is Ruvain Mendel. El mole rachamim shochen bam romim. Hamatzei menucha nachona tachat kanfe hashchina lenishmat Ruvain Mendel. Shehalach le'olamo. Ba'al harachamim yitzror bitzror hakayim et nishmato. Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomor Amen. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest unto the soul of our beloved Ruvain Mendel, Rich Murray Rothenstein, and Richie and Pop-Up, who has departed from this world. Lord of mercy, bring him into your presence and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession, and may he rest in peace as he lived it his entire life, at peace with himself and with others. And we say, Amen. And you may be seated. And I'll ask that we can rise once more, please.
it pointy and they don't fit the step. I will. I'm going to. I should have brought it.